Let's use the same technique we have used in the previous lesson to refactor tests inside functions.test.ts. Here we have a lot of tests with pretty similar expectations, so I'm gonna use method each on the test object that has to be imported from the Vitest library, and then I'm gonna move all necessary data that will be different for every test call into this array, extract parameter that we are passing into format seconds with sign function. It will be the first element of these arrays. And the second element will be expecting return value after we're gonna call function format seconds with sign with respective argument. Then by using familiar technique, we can change the description of this test. I'm gonna mention that this test checks format seconds with sign function when we're gonna pass positive amount of seconds into this function. Since amount of seconds is a numeric value, I'm gonna use %i to format this value. And as a return value we're about to get formatted string, we could have used %s to format string, but in here I've used %o, that stands for object, because by using this formatting symbol, the string will be shown in the single quotes in test results. Then let's accept two parameters into the test function. And now I'll simply replace all hard-coded values in here. So every time this test gets executed, it will get different values for parameters, and therefore test results will be different. Let's switch over to the terminal and take a look at the test results. As we can see, our function has been executed 6 times with different values for parameters of format seconds with sign function, as well as different expected return values of this function. Next, we're going to apply identical refactoring to the next function. In here, I'm also going to use method each, and then I'm gonna extract all necessary data from these expectations. Here I also need parameter for the function format seconds with sign and return value of these functions. I'm gonna put all these values into arrays with 2 elements, and then let's just change the description of this test to follow same pattern. Here I'm gonna mention that we are testing the function format seconds with sign when we will pass negative amount of seconds. I'm using %i to format numeric amount of seconds and %o to format expected formatted string. After doing all this, we no longer need all other assertions. We can leave only one assertion, but in this case we're going to supply different values every time this test gets executed, like so. And here we go. In total there are 12 calls of format seconds with sign function. First 6 calls were checking that this function returns proper formatted string when we're passing positive amount of seconds, and last 6 calls were checking the same function but when we were passing negative amount of seconds. Now let's quickly do the same type of refactoring to the next test. It will be pretty similar to previous two. Here I'm also going to use method each and gather all necessary data for this test into this array by extracting parameter of the format seconds function as well as expected return value, like so. For the description, let's mention the name of the function under the test, format seconds, which accepts numeric value, and we expect formatted string in the end. And then every element from the previous arrays will be passed into this test function. First element will be passed into the first parameter, and the second element of those arrays will be passed as the second argument into this function. Moving on to the next test. As we can see, it has less expectations, but nevertheless those are pretty similar, which means we can also use same technique by calling method each and gathering all the data needed for these tests into this array. In the first case, if we're going to pass the string that cannot be converted to the number into normalized select value function, as a result we're going to receive same string that we have passed. So 2 elements of the first array will be the same. The second scenario is when we are passing null value into this function, and as a result we're going to get null. And finally, if we're going to pass number as a string at the end, we're gonna get the same number, but as the actual number, not a string. So now let's remove all extra expectations and leave only one line. As a description, I'm gonna mention that we are testing normalized select value function, which receives one argument. Then we're basically accepting values from those arrays as parameters into this function and passing them further into normalized select value call, as well as into toBe method call, like this. And finally, let's do same steps one more time for the next test, which tests getProgressColor class function. We have already done this so many times, so I'm going to quickly go through this procedure once again and extract all necessary data from these expectations by placing them into the initial array that is going to be used to run expectations several times. And then after extracting this data, I'll change the description, saying that we are testing getProgressColor class function which accepts one argument, which is a numeric value. And then all the data we are receiving as parameters into this test function, and then passing them further into respective calls. First parameter is going to be passed into getProgressColor class function, and the second one will be used as a parameter for toBe method call. And after doing all this refactoring, we haven't actually changed any logic in our tests, but instead the main idea was to split the data from the test implementation. So instead we're using the same expectation, but every time our test function gets executed, our expectation receives different values. So we're still running our expectations with different values, even though we have only one expectation in a test function. So as for the last test in this file, it doesn't make sense to apply same refactoring because in here we have only one expectation. Let's take a look at the test results. As we can see, all expectations are passing. And now I'm gonna run all tests in the project. They're all passing as well. Link to the source code will be in the video description.